Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So the intro montage was one of me doing a little bit of modification to the cooling system. So what we did is took this back port on the cylinder head that would normally go to one of the heater core ports, and I had made a pipe stub that comes out of it that I tied this 12AN line to, and it comes from there up to the bottom of the fill pot. So the idea with this is to provide a path of egress for hot coolant that would otherwise be pooling in the back of the head and potentially causing or potentially catalyzing torching the head or making that cylinder hot and unhappy. So with that path out there, or out of that, the back of the head, we have coolant flow through the whole system now, or we should at least, and hopefully that will make the engine a little bit happier as we actually start leaning on this. So beyond that, what we're going to be working on today are some filler panels for the door panels. So I have assembled the door panels, and this one's the driver's side, and I realized that I can't use the front panel right here, which is where the window switch and lock and everything would go. So I have some ABS plastic, courtesy of Lord Bezos, and I'm going to be taking this, and I have 6 sheets of it, be taking that ABS plastic and making block-offs for the speaker holes, for these pass-throughs that the factory wiring would have gone through, and hopefully I can make this look alright and not like there's just giant holes in the door panels. Supra now has door panels again. So they're not the prettiest things in the world, the block-off panels, but this likely isn't the permanent solution. It's more of just a proof of concept, and all in all, I'm reasonably happy with the way that this came out. So I blocked off the speaker hole, blocked off the tweeter hole. Both of those are just glued in place, and the glue that I used isn't the best, but hopefully it'll hold up for the time being. And then I cut out these shapes right here, which thankfully they mirrored side to side. So all the holes in the door panels are blocked off now. Everything fits nicely. Everything is put back together in terms of the actual handles and the functional bits and all of that. So this is pretty much a complete interior minus a few bits here and there, but this is exactly what I was after, exactly what I was hoping for. And one cool bit, still have power windows, So now that we have this done, the next thing to do will be the heat management stuff, and that'll be in the next couple of days, and then I can knock all of that out, and then this thing will be completely squared away to go to the dyno, and it'll just be a matter of determining a date at that point in time. Beyond working on the car, you guys may have noticed in the background that this area looks a little bit different, and I had just a basic 2-level shelf where this new box was, and I had all kinds of blow molded boxed tools all over the shop. And I dealt with it for a while, and it finally drove me crazy enough where I went over to Harbor Freight and I bought this. So this houses all kinds of different consumables, you know, zip ties, O-rings, all the wiring stuff there. And then down underneath we have all the blow molded boxes here. Have kind of engine stuff, engine diag stuff over here, and the heat gun over here. We have all the riv nut stuff, the riv nut tools, all the riv nut mandrels, extra riv nuts, etc., and my riv nut assortment there. Miscellaneous chargers, tube tool, or tube bending, tube flaring tool. Have the plastic that I just used on these door panels, and all kinds of different stuff. So I have a feeling that this will not be the only one of these that I end up purchasing. And if you guys have priced out just normal plastic cabinets, like garage cabinets, they're like $300. It's kind of ridiculous. And this thing was, I think, around $380, if I remember correctly. And it rolls, it's metal construction with a pretty nice wood top on it. So it ends up being a better cabinet that better serves my needs as opposed to a stand-up one that's stationary. So I couldn't beat it. I saw it the other day, knew I had to have it, and finally the light bulb went off in my head. Like, hey man, you need to actually organize this place and get some of these blow molded boxes put away. So we'll see how long that I can keep it this clean. I know it's still a disaster compared to, I'm sure, what a lot of you guys are working with, but for me, this is pretty clean, and we'll see if I can keep it this way for any duration of time. What we're going to do on the Supra now is some heat management, or I guess the foundational work to be able to do some heat management. So, in this corner of the engine bay is my fuel surge tank, and this is obviously a reservoir for fuel, and we have fuel lines going to and from it. You can see these are in reasonably close proximity to the header, and I don't want to have any issues either with a vapor lock or, worst case scenario, rupturing a line and then causing an ethanol fire to happen. So we're going to do some thermal management with the fuel surge itself as well as the lines, and the components are on the way for this. I don't have them in my hands right now, but we can at least get the fuel surge out of here. I'm going to paint it, steel it gray, the magic paint. As you guys can probably tell, it's like my new favorite paint. A new favorite thing to do is to paint stuff steel it gray. But that being said, I'm going to pull this, I can get it painted, and then once my sleeves and my heat shield arrive for all of this, I can get it all assembled, and then all of the heat management will be done. And in the meantime, while I'm doing this, I can also fasten this line down for the fire suppression system. So this thing isn't the end of the world to get out of here. You just have to be kind of careful with the fuel that's in it so you don't spill ethanol everywhere and make a mess. So without more being said about it, let's just go ahead and get to it. this episode is quickly turning into a let's accomplish a bunch of little projects on the Supra episode. So yesterday I went ahead and I pulled the surge tank out. I did some additional bracing on this mount, on the lower mount, and then obviously painted it with a coat of my favorite new paint, Steel It. So this thing's all ready to go back in. Once the heat shield comes in, I can get it applied to it, but I don't have it just yet, so we'll have to wait for that. But in the meantime, we have a couple of things, or a couple of items that I can add to the car and accomplish today. So we have these little bags here. These are just little cargo bags, double-sided tape on the back, just some Amazon specials, and I have 4 of them. I'm not sure how many I'm going to apply, but I realized in driving and operating this car that there's really no good place to put like your phone, your wallet, insurance and registration paperwork, stuff like that. So that is why we have these, just some little cargo pockets. So that way people's items can actually be retained in one spot rather than blowing around or getting rolled around the cabin. And then finally, we have hood struts for this thing. So you guys have seen for pretty much as long as this car has been on the channel, I've used this piece of aluminum angle that I put a couple of little cut hose rubber bushing, rubber grommet things on, and it's worked, but it's not the correct way to hold the hood up. So I went on eBay and bought the eBay special hood struts for it. So hopefully these fit well, and I guess we'll see here in a few minutes. So I guess let's start with the hood struts, see how that project goes, and then we can move on to the rest of it from there. Is so much better. I don't know why I waited for as long as I did to just get hood struts, but now that they are finally on here and I don't have to have my lovely piece of aluminum angle holding the hood up, this makes me very happy. And this kit was like $50 on eBay and works perfectly, everything lined up perfectly. The hood shuts perfectly, everything works out just beautifully, and I couldn't be happier with this. So that's done in all of about a 2-minute install. So not anything too exciting or too in-depth. You literally just thread one ball end fastener into one of the fender bolt holes. You put this little adapter deal on the actual hinge fastener there, and the struts pop into place. So now that that's done, and I know I'm making a big deal out of it, but it's the little things that make me excited, and this is certainly one of those little things that certainly makes me very excited. All right, so the next thing that we're going to look at are the little cargo bags. So I'd like to put one on the dash, something like this, so that way it can act like a glove box more or less, as my glove box panel here, that's really just access for the wiring harness, and I don't want to do anything to take up any of the space in there, you know, just in case I need to get in and actually do any wiring repair or fuse replacements. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have one of them here, and then I may end up putting a bag on each one of the door panels, so that way, something along those lines, so both the passenger and I can have somewhere to store, again, like phone, keys, wallets, something along those lines. So should be pretty simple. The only thing I need to take into consideration is the flock coating, which I might have to sand some of that off so the double-sided tape has somewhere to appropriately adhere to this. going to do on this thing next is install these heat sleeves. So these are fire wraps from DEI, and what these are compared to a normal heat sleeve, if you see the Velcro right here, or the hook and loop rather, these are wraparound heat sleeves for AN lines. So the reason these are beneficial in an instance like this are with these hose ends on the end of each of these fuel lines, it makes it difficult to slide a heat sleeve over top of each one of them. However, if you can wrap the heat sleeve around it and then just simply latch some hook and loop or some Velcro, that makes things much easier, and it's one less thing that you have to screw around with, disassembling hose ends and possibly destroying threads and having things not be able to go back together easily, and so on and so forth. So I have heat sleeves for these 4 fuel lines right here, since they are in reasonably close proximity to the header, which is, I guess, aside from the turbine housing itself, the hottest part in the engine bay. I don't want to have the possibility, or I want to minimize the possibility of these lines rupturing and creating a big fuel fire. Now, I have the fire suppression system, but I'd prefer not to use it if I have the opportunity to. So that's where these come in, and then, like I've said, we have some heat shielding from DEI as well that will go on the surge tank, but it got delayed in shipping, and that likely won't be something that we'll do in this episode. So I guess without further ado, let's get these heat sleeves put on those 4 lines. That way that will be done, and then we're just that heat shield away from putting the fuel system back together and having this thing be operational again. Items now checked off of the list of little things, and that's probably what I'll end up titling this video, but the list of little things for the Supra. So over here I have all of my heat sleeving in place, and again, this is the DEI fire sleeve stuff, or fire wrap. It's their normal heat sleeve just with hook and loop, and works pretty nicely. So all these lines are now sleeved, and I'm less worried about them being close to the header. The fire suppression line is now fastened in place just with a couple of P-clamps that I painted black, so it'll maybe blend in a little bit better and hopefully not rust. Beyond that, I came inside of the car, and my filler panels on the sides of the dash, the Velcro didn't want to hold very well onto the dash itself, so I went and got some super glue, super glued those, all is well there now. And last but not least, since you guys saw me do this earlier in the video, but I didn't actually show it after the fact, I have my little cargo pouch here with registration and insurance cards, so that's easily accessible. This kind of acts like the glove box since the car doesn't have one any longer. And all is well there. The refinished cowl looks absolutely beautiful, and although it is not perfect, it's more than good enough for this thing and how rough around the edges that it really is. So I went and used some of my ABS plastic, and I cut out little block-off plates This one obviously houses the nitrous purge, and the one in the center of the cowl panel right there is completely blocked off. Now those were the factory wiper arm, wiper motor connections right there, and this thing doesn't have wipers any longer, so those are unnecessary, and I just didn't want ugly holes sticking through there. So that's all squared away now, and how ugly that thing was before, it was driving me nuts, and now I can rest easy knowing that it at least looks a little bit better. But with that being done, and essentially at a stopping point now, since my wrap for the surge tank was delayed in shipping, hence why the surge tank is not reinstalled right now, it's about all that I can do for this episode. So hopefully these little projects were at least some bit entertaining for you. I know I had fun doing them, and it's always little oddball odds and ends projects like this that if you put a little bit of time in for them, then the benefits that you reap are phenomenal. And we have a beautiful cowl, we have some heat sleeving, we have a little bit of work done on the interior, we have the new coolant bypass line, or coolant, the new coolant path rather, from the back of the head to the swirl pot, or the fill pot rather, and hopefully everything and all of these things work harmoniously together, and I can get the heat sleeving or heat wrap on the surge tank in the next episode, and then finally take this thing back out for another drive. But with all of that being said, and a little bit of rambling done, admittedly, that'll be about the end of this one. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, for coming along on this crazy ride with me. And I know we'll get back to the Mark II before too long, but right now my focus has been on this thing since it is so close to being able to go on the dyno, and I just want to make that happen. I really want to see what it does and what it makes, or if it kicks a rod out, blows up, and we're back to square one. I'm just ready to know one way or another, and that time is rapidly approaching. But it isn't now. This is the end of this episode, so let's wrap it up. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.